Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good new year to you all. Welcome to the Vegan World 2026 Moonshot podcast. And to start off this year, we are going to be talking about justice for animals and the larger picture of justice for animals. Because we had an exhilarating 11 days, the end of December, with the Enlightening Our World Together event. Enlightening Our Way Together event. And that was ended with the day that shall not be followed by night, December 22nd, 2020, which I think forever will be recognized as day one of the new era. I really believe that. And so that was Vegan Day. And the Indigenous community came together and proclaimed. They had a treaty to protect and restore Mother Earth. And they proclaimed that day to be Vegan Day, the day that shall not be followed by night. And that treaty is now in public for all of us to sign. And I'm joined here by Jon Ramer, who was one of the architects of this. And along with him, we have Robert Gordon and David Finney, who are from the UK, who are working to end factory farming. I mean, how amazing would that be, right? Because as part of the treaty to protect and restore Mother Earth, the Indigenous community declared in Article 15 that the human family will commit to end the exploitation of animals or animal relatives. And I think that is the Galileo moment of this era. You know, just like when Galileo said the Earth goes around the sun, not the other way around, and he got persecuted for it. We are saying the animals are not here for us to exploit, and we are getting persecuted for it too. In fact, Earthling Ed had said the other day at Harvard that male ethical vegans are as hated as drug dealers in our society, because we are literally showing that it can be done, and you don't need to eat meat in order to be masculine, and we really don't need to exploit animals for any reason whatsoever. And that is so counter to the current ethos. So thank you all for being here. So let me start by asking you, David, how did this start, and what is the process that you're going through?
Well, thank you so much for having us on the podcast, Silesh. Just checking you can hear me okay?
Yes.
That's wonderful. So how this all started, well, it's quite a long story. I'll try and condense it for you. But three of us, well, several of us who are in the Humane Being organization. So Humane Being was set up by a lady called Jane Tredgett. It's a not-for-profit organization, and it's run entirely by volunteers. So I, for one, got involved with Humane Being just over a year ago. And the way that all came about was some of us are actually in the Green Party of England and Wales. And I met a lady called Peter Smith at a conference, and she said, "Oh, you must read this book, Chicken's Lib, by Claire Druce, and you must meet Jane Tredgett." So I read this book, Chicken's Lib, and I thought, wow, this lady for most of her life has been looking into the appalling treatment of chickens on UK farms. And basically, I came away from the book thinking, this demonstrates that actually factory farming has an illegality to it, a perceived illegality to it, I should say. And I thought she was saying what a lot of people were feeling. So this basically led to Jane, Peter, and I starting to form the basis of a legal campaign. Now, when we started it, it was very much about illustrating that the Animal Welfare Act 2006 in the UK was being breached by the very nature of factory farming. We did a lot of research, and Jane herself, in fact, compiled a 300-page document of evidence and references. And our research led us to confirm the fact that factory farming is so damaging to the planet, as I'm sure you're more than aware, but also that it was an extreme health risk. So suddenly we thought, this case could be more powerful if it presented, if you like, a three-pronged attack. So we started contacting legal firms in the UK, and we're getting a very positive response. And it was Jane who actually wrote to Michael Mansfield. Now, some of you, may be aware of Michael. He's quite a legend in the UK, and Michael has been involved in several high-profile cases. He said yes straight away. So wow. Basically, that's a reasonably short version, I hope, Silesh, of how we got to sort of kick off the legal challenge to the government, which is simply factory farming must be abolished. So we're saying scrap factory farming.
So what is the process that you go through now that the case has been filed, I presume? And
yeah. So the way the legal team, who, by the way, Michael is backed by a very strong UK legal firm called Hackett and Dabbs. And their idea was, first of all, to give our government every opportunity to do something before we take it further. So a letter has been sent. It went out just before Christmas to our Secretary of State, Mr. George Eustice. And the letter basically expressed everything I've said in a little bit more detail, and said, what is the government doing? Why are you not abolishing factory farming? Are you aware of all of these risks? Are you aware of the disease risks? We've discovered that 3 out of 4, as you're probably aware, 3 out of 4 new and emerging infectious diseases in humans are coming from animals. Actually, in the UK, we had 17 outbreaks of avian flu on the lead up to Christmas. So with all of this, basically, the letter's gone to the government. They have 2 weeks to respond. And depending on the response, we will then press ahead with other action.
I see. So, Robert, how did you get involved in this? And
just to reiterate what David said, thank you very much for having us on to speak today. My story of how I got involved is a little bit different. I came on board later than David and some of the others, but I also knew Jane Tredgett. And I'd worked for a couple of years with the RSPCA at my local animal rescue centre. And throughout my time there, I was always confused, as David said, as to how we have an Animal Welfare Act that protects animals, particularly domestic animals, but routinely seems to be broken in settings of factory farms, where you have simple ideals in the Animal Welfare Act, such as freedom from pain, freedom to express normal behaviours that are clearly being denied to our factory farmed animals. And I was very much confused as to how this was allowed under UK legislation. So I'd done some of my own research into it, and I'd spoken with Jane about the topic, and she invited me on board onto the team, and the rest is history. We've worked very hard over the last year to bring everything together to where it is now. As David said, a lot of work's been going on behind the scenes. Jane compiled over 300 pages of research that has very much formed the basis of our argument to get factory farming scrapped, not just for the animals who do suffer in these conditions, but for the people that are at greater risk of pandemics, antibiotic resistance, and also the catastrophe that is climate change that is being accelerated by intensive agriculture. So that's my story.
Well, do you think that the Crown will argue that following logically your arguments, you literally have to abolish animal agriculture, not just factory farming?
Well, our challenge itself is based upon factory farming, because for us, that's the most damaging aspect of animal agriculture. We're placing the challenge, but it will be the government's response to that we have to anticipate, and it could well be to abolish all forms of animal agriculture. I don't know if they would go that far. I think it's going to take a lot of work on our part and on the part of our lawyers to even get them to admit that, contrary to what they believe, their animal welfare standards aren't high enough, their safeguarding against diseases isn't high enough, and that they're not doing enough to combat climate change. So I think we do have a long battle ahead of us, and by targeting factory farming, we're targeting the worst forms of animal agriculture that are most damaging to people, planet, and animals.
Awesome. So while you are working from the top down, addressing the government, Brother Phil and Jon Ramer have been working from the bottom up, getting the people together to talk about this issue. And so Brother Phil has joined us. Thank you so much, Brother Phil, for your leadership in this.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about the Treaty to Protect and Restore Mother Earth, how
Yes.
it came about, and
Yeah, excuse me. I just jumped out of my
Morning.
red hot bath, and I get a cold shower. So, in 2009, we initiated the International Indigenous Leadership Gathering up in Statlam Territory, sponsored by the Statlam Tribal Council. And we understood that we were facing an incredible challenge. Our elders have been telling us for years and years about what was happening. And so we came together and decided to consult Indigenous people across the Americas, which we did. We went to Rio Plus 20. We went to the Indigenous Summit of the Americas in Panama City, many other locations, and to receive the input from Indigenous peoples, what they saw as a comprehensive approach to addressing this. And of course, in relationship to the treatment of our animal relatives, we knew that from all the evidence that the factory farming of our animals not only was completely cruel and inhumane, but it was a tremendous contributor to climate change, of course, as well as war, number one in terms of carbon emissions. So in this consultation process, we came up with 16 articles, which we believe that there's no other treaty anywhere on Mother Earth that fully addresses runaway climate change, because this is where we're going. And not only is the emission of the it comes from this factory farming of animals, and also this tremendous increase of human desire for eating cattle is emitting the methane and so forth, but it's destroying our rainforest, destroying them, destroying our indigenous communities everywhere.
Right.
And so that's how we've been. And then we concluded this process, a 6-year process in 2015 at the Paris climate change meetings. And Brother Jon was there. We had Indigenous people from everywhere. And we there released a report with dear brother
Rex
Weiler, and called A Critical State of Mother Earth. And it was so dire. When we looked at it, people said, what's this? What are the solutions to this? And so we had the articles in there we saw, and then we put that together. And of course, when they had the big climate change meetings there in New York City at the United Nations, And they signed, everybody was, I remember this, being there, the United Nations was just packed. Everybody's, oh, we've solved the issue. We're all here together. We're at a little humble place in the Brooklyn, at the Brooklyn Yacht Club. The yacht club, but we had our canoes there. The Haudenosaunee came down in the canoes, and after we signed that treaty, we filled a sacred pipe, because when we do this, it's sacred. And then we went out on canoes into the Hudson River and started moving towards the United Nations building. Of course, 2 great big police boats came to stop us. We stopped there and we offered this sacred pipe and blew that smoke to the United Nations, in spiritually way saying, you know, we have a lot more to do.
Right.
And this belief that we're going to change these few degrees of carbon by carbon offsets and so forth, which just didn't even pass the smell test. But, oh yes. So I guess the big question I have is that we have all these climate change approaches and so forth, but I have to ask the question: what are the people that have the billions upon billions and trillions? How are they going to change their lifestyle?
Right.
What are they going to do about, you know, you got 7, 8 houses around the world, you fly around in private jets, you produce all this pollution. What are you going to do to change your lives? Our lives are being completely monitored and controlled.
Right.
Think about it. I mean, to this day and age, what are they? What are those that have all these resources and control them? What are you going to do? So that's a little bit about the international treaty, and particularly, I really feel, and I don't have the copy right here, but that one particular Article 15.
I have it.
Please read that, brother, because this is our bottom line. This is where we stand, and this is why, by the way, I became vegan. Because how can I address these issues if I myself am doing the same thing as others? That's why I'm saying we have to ask people, what are you going to do?
Right.
It doesn't make a difference how much money we have. What are we going to do as a human family together?
Right.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, Brother Phil. Brother John, can you please read
I will.
15?
Yeah. Thank you for having us here, Silas, and for all the work that you've been doing.
Yes.
Your pinky promise to your granddaughter inspired me.
Thank you.
And it's led to this partnership. And when this treaty was shared and part of enlightening our way together, we made sure that Article 15 reflected a clear commitment. It says, Article 15, we, the members of the human family, commit to eliminating the exploitation of our animal relatives. Despite animal agriculture being the world's leading emitter of methane, its role in climate change has been largely ignored during climate conferences. Furthermore, the increased demand for raising animals for human consumption is leading to the destruction of the rainforests and rural land that many of our brothers and sisters call home, causing human rights abuses, poverty, and violence. And that's part of the International Treaty to Protect and Restore Mother Earth. That's Article 15. And someone dropped the link in there. I can add the link as well.
Yeah.
Invite everybody to inform themselves. And like Brother Phil says, you know, it's action, right? It's making these commitments and following through on them. So we're glad to be here in service and support of a better world that starts with healthy choices and the ending of exploitation of animals.
So, John, speak a bit more about the upcoming event, Martin Luther King Jr. event.
Yes, you know, it's a perfect time for Dr. Martin Luther King's words. Fortunately, he was prolific and there speak right to the heart of the matter. Phil beautifully articulated his role, Martin Luther King's role in support for the Native Americans. But the vision that he holds of a beloved community is where we're headed. And here's a quote from Martin Luther King. He said that the aftermath of violence is bitterness. The aftermath of nonviolence is the creation of beloved community, so that when the battle is over, a new relationship comes into being. The end is reconciliation. The end is redemption. This is the love that may well be the salvation of our civilization. And what we're learning is that it took a pandemic, it took a move such as we've all lived through, of being locked down and socially distanced, to actually now use this new medium, the video conferencing and online resources, to gather in ways like we never have before.
Mm-hmm.
We've been able to, in fact, we had a fire from the Amazon burning for 12 days during the Enlightening Our Way Together. So upcoming on January 15th through the 18th is a weekend devoted to Dr. Martin Luther King. It's his birthday on the 15th, and in the US they celebrate the National Day of Service. And then that's kicking off 40 days of peace. But for those 4 days, we're going to be convening in this online convergence where there's multiple Zoom rooms with schedules and presentations being made. And we're inviting everybody to come share your wisdom, bring your offerings. They'll be lighting a fire again from the Global Center of Indigenous Sciences and Ancestral Wisdom, and honoring Dr. Martin Luther King. And, you know, there were so many things he had to say. One about how we're going to make America great again. Well, he says everybody can be great because everybody can serve.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a chance to really, you know, step it up. And like Phil's commitment to be vegan, our commitment to support each other and to recognize that if we don't change our direction, we're likely to wind up where we're headed. And this is the time to make those changes. That's an ancient Chinese proverb that's more true now than I think it's ever been. So thank you again, Silas, for your leadership. Thank you, Brother Phil, for all that you represent and for the opportunity to serve together this way. This is what we were born for. This is our time. Let's not miss it. Let's have 2021 be the year that justifies the insane 2020 that we just lived through. And may it be for a better world.
I'm so looking forward to that. In fact, the Treaty to Protect and Restore Mother Earth is so comprehensive. To me, it is the blueprint for addressing sustainability, for addressing climate change, you know, all of those issues. So every nation should be signing that, not just the indigenous peoples of the world. And so I am actually committing to you today that I will be pressuring the Hindu community and the Indian government to sign this, you know, to sign this treaty. And I think because what you have done, you know, Brother Phil and John, and I mean, all the people who got together to create that treaty is put down the truth. No more hiding behind, you know, that is not touchable, you know. And that's what was going on in the UN. I was there in Paris, and I was shocked that it was hard for me to eat vegan food during the climate change conference. So I went and complained to the UN, you know, the UN office. I remember going in and saying, "Where's my food?"
And you know, brother, I want to clarify some real false news that came up when I wrote the article about Dr. Martin Luther King. There was a Jewish rabbi who his name happened to be Rothschild, who lived in Atlanta. And this gentleman stood up for racial equality. And of course, they bombed his synagogue and so forth and so on. There's a picture of him together with Dr. King, because he really supported Dr. King at a time, by the way, when you didn't want to support Dr. King. That's why his synagogue got blown up. And so sure enough, as they say, when the cry of truth is raised, so is the cry of denial. And so I shared this on this our 100 million Indigenous people Facebook page. And of course, sure enough, somebody came up and said, well, did you know he was caught up with the Rothschilds, whatever, you know, blood sucking, all these things. Is simply not true. There's 8,000 almost relatives who carry the name Rothschild. Just because you carry the name Smith or Lane or whatever, that does not mean that every single person named Smith or Rothschild or Lane did maybe what somebody else did. I don't know all the weird things about the Rothschild family that came out of Frankfurt, but this is not the same Rothschild. So this false news about Martin Luther King that's spreading around is just simply wrong. And I want to be very clear about that. Let's really understand that everything around us is being censored, and we've got to independently investigate the truth for our own self. Not through the eyes of another, not through the ears of another, not through the mouth of another, but through our own independent investigation of truth. But I just wanted to clear that up this morning.
Thank you so much. That was very important. And you are absolutely right.
No, it's confirmed in the comments. I'm sorry, Sasha. I just want to say, someone confirmed that in Jacob Rothschild, this is the temple in Atlanta, and not associated with the banking family of the Rothschilds. But
yes.
Yeah, Sarah wrote that that's my friend Marsha's father. We both taught at the temple in Atlanta.
Okay, there you go. So,
right. This is beautiful. Thank you. How can we work together? With the lawsuit that's going on in the UK, I think we can connect that with what you're doing, Brother Finn, Brother John. So any thoughts on that, David or Robert?
Yes, thank you. I mean, we had hoped that what we're doing in the UK, which we've been told is a world first in terms of a legal challenge, and we certainly had hoped that it might spark a global precedent, a legal precedent. So it would be amazing if someone like yourself, Sailesh, or your associates could take this to your respective leaders and talk to them about it, as you already mentioned, the Hindu community and I don't know, Joe Biden maybe. But I think this is an absolutely brilliant opportunity because I've watched the UK people while the pandemic has been on, and by and large, they have followed the government rules and guidelines. There's always going to be some instances where some people don't do what they're being asked to do. So what an incredible thing it would be if our government came out and said, yeah, we've looked at this and we realize that factory farming is damaging our environment in terms of emissions and in terms of importing soya from South America and linking it to deforestation. How amazing would it be if they could get everyone to get on board with that and to explain to them the rationale? It's not about telling people what to eat. It's about explaining why it's so important to make certain changes.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
and if I can just add to that, I don't think anyone goes to the supermarket and thinks, oh, I'm going to buy the most abused animal. I'm going to buy the meat that caused the most emissions, or that's most likely to have disease or to be pumped full of antibiotics and a risk to my own health. People don't do that. Where people are forced into buying cheap meats from factory farms because the supermarkets push prices down and basically facilitate and necessitate the continuation of factory farming that obviously our governments also endorse and facilitate. And that's what we want to see end. We want to see a world where everyone can eat healthy, sustainable foods without having to compromise. And unfortunately, we are having to compromise at the moment, and it's dangerous to the planet and our own health.
Absolutely. Food system is the key to changing our whole way of living, the whole way of relating to the earth, relating to each other. Why are people not getting healthy food? That's one of our first questions we asked. Why are so many people getting unhealthy food? And why is unhealthy food subsidized for poor people and not healthy food? Is someone making money off our diseases? And the answer was yes. And he said, wait a minute, this is not what we signed up for. We didn't want to get into a factory farm, did we? So the factory farm that we are addressing is really the factory farm for human beings. That's happening right now. We're all being factory farmed so that pharmaceutical companies can make money off our bodies. And so it's time we tell our leaders we know what's going on and we don't like it. And you better start doing something about it. And I think it's really up to us people to take our power back. We always had it. We gave it to those corporations. We can take it back.
Yeah. Well, that's the gift of the great pause and the pandemic.
Right.
They say we're in this space somewhere between no longer and not yet.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where there's some opportunity for us to rise together. That's the moment that I think we've all been praying for, that there could be a moment in which we're each challenged to change our ways. Mm-hmm. And together we change more people and influence the choices that we're making and realize that there are other ways to live this life. I still remember when there were smoking sections on airplanes.
Mm-hmm.
And we look back on that now, we say, what were we thinking? It's possible for us to change. We've seen it. So imagine a day in which we realize that this is not the way to treat our animal relatives. And a different world gets made. Look what's happened in Amsterdam. They've committed to this donut economics, this idea of a circular city during
Mm-hmm.
COVID. Change can happen. This is the time for great change. That's why this whole new year and this new age in which we find ourselves in is ripe for this. Your leadership on this, Silas, it's a long time coming, but you're not alone.
No. I can remember when my good brother Mike Friedman and I hitchhiked from Walla Walla, Washington, across from Washington to New York City. We eventually caught a freighter down the coast of United States. We stopped in the Philadelphia Navy Yards, Baltimore Navy Yards, and then we ended up the Norfolk Navy Yards. This was 1962. Mm-hmm. And I remember we went in, and of course I was 18, and it was all the seamen, and they had a kind of like a bar there. And I looked and I saw it said colored people only and others, I guess. And I felt, as I got really close to the cooks there, who are African American, and I wanted to go on the other side. They said, no, you can't do that. I mean, I saw that where human beings were treated like this. It was in my lifetime. Who would do that today? And maybe they might do it in their hearts, but in terms of actually doing it, so many changes have happened. And I think that's the key when Jon said we have the power. Each of us is a sovereignty, ancient, imperishable, everlasting. Each of us is a divine being. We have that capacity individually and collectively to make change, but we are at that place where we don't act. We're going to become irrelevant part of a process that during this pandemic, hundreds of billions of dollars went to some relatives, while other relatives' businesses were wiped out, everything happened, and we became just more irrelevant. So we have a choice to make. This is our moment of choice as a human family, from my perspective.
Right. You're absolutely right, Brother Phil. I mean, this is our moment of choice. And the good news is, just like you pointed out, how change has happened in our lifetime. And change has happened faster and faster and faster in our lifetime. Yes. And that's what this medium is allowing us to do, So this change can happen on a dime very quickly. And this is why I'm so convinced that my pinky promise to my granddaughter will be met, that there will be a vegan world by 2026, and thanks to all of us working together. It's all of us meeting that promise to my granddaughter and her regeneration, because they deserve a beautiful planet. They deserve a planet without trash in it, without all this mess because we can clean it up. We know we can clean it up. If we put our minds to it, we can do anything. We can clean it up and restore the climate and restore the ecosystems of the planet, restore the animals, and hand that over as a legacy to our children and grandchildren. That's my wish. That's my dream, that we get to do that. And that they will look back at our generation and say, they did something for us. And this is, to me, this is why this is the beginning of a new era. And so I'm so grateful to you, Brother Phil, for proclaiming that, putting that stake in the ground and saying, this is the day that shall not be followed by night, this vegan day. And this is a new era. In fact, my granddaughter has come up with, we were working together and she came up with a new calendar. So I'm going to post that for Martin Luther King Day celebration. I'm going to have a presentation on the new calendar, Kimaya's calendar. So it should be year one, VW, Vegan World year one. That's what we are living right now.
I want to share that last night I was on a call, kind of a family call of our extended family, and my beautiful nephew, Cedar George, and all these young people announced they were vegan.
Oh.
I was taken aback. Was they very much respect the which we have to respect as well, the process of understanding how connected the indigenous people are to their salmon or to buffalo or whatever, in that sacred relationship they have. But they said, no, we're not going to these supermarkets and buying these foods anymore. We're not going to do this. And they're eating vegan. So I thought to myself, I was surprised. Young people are really wise. This is our hope. This is what we call the seventh generation. Over 50% of our population on Mother Earth. They're so far advanced to where I was in their age. So far advanced. And so far advanced, but I think, I'm not sure we might criticize here and there that they're not doing this right. But we look at it. Their viewpoint is very different than my generation, which we're responsible. And that's why I'm saying as elders, we have to stand up and wake up here. Right. I'm just not going to lay down and die. That's not what elders do. Elders share wisdom. Elders stand up and do things and are models for their communities. So for me, I don't want to roll over. Okay, let's go.
Let's go indeed. Thank you. Yeah. Robert, what do you think? Are we measuring up?
Yeah, I think it's wonderful, and I'm obviously surrounded by people my age who are very concerned about the future. We've got climate change, which is affecting us already and is only going to get worse unless we do something about it. And now we've been hit by this other crisis, COVID-19, that's really flipped my world upside down. I think it's flipped everyone's world upside down. But it's particularly frightening for young people who now are entering an unstable job market and perhaps even struggling to get by. And it's wonderful to have people of all age groups working together when you see the climate protests. And it's not just children from schools who are coming out and saying this is affecting us, it's their grandparents as well. And obviously you made the Pinky Promise, which I think is a lovely thing, and I really hope we will see it come to fruition.
Mm-hmm. Well, in our culture, we believe that everything happens through a higher power. So we are just instruments in this, and we are going to act on behalf of the higher power. You can call it creator, you can call that Lord Krishna, you can call that Jesus or God or Yahweh, whatever. Doesn't matter. It is life together is designed to maximize the thriving of life. So the theory we came up with that we are really the climate regulator species of the planet, because we acknowledge that we are changing the climate, We are acknowledging that we have the responsibility to regulate it. Okay? Because if we can change it, we have to regulate it. We have to keep it constant. This is our job. So that being the case, we need to say, okay, we do have a purpose in life. We do have a purpose on this planet. It's not like we were just put there to just destroy the planet and disappear. We are put there to make sure that the planet does not ever have to go back to another ice age. So we are serving our mother. We've always been serving our mother. Mother Earth created us for this purpose. And we are doing it. Except we didn't know that that's what we were doing, until now. She was just using us, So that's my story. And I'm sticking to it.
Yes. And I think, reality is that we need to go beyond this either or thinking.
Right.
People are saying, well, this is happening. This is a natural process, a natural cycle. Nothing I can do about it. And others are saying, okay, it's human caused. Hey, Doc Yeppy, where did we learn to think either or? What if both of things are happening? What if because the reason they can't quite get a hold of this is because you have a natural cycle going on and then you have the human contribution as well? Why not understand that it's not either or? That's dualism. What if both are unfolding? That even means more that we need to address this, because there's a factor happening here that, yes, is contributing, but also the other side. So we've got to take whatever action is necessary to stop this, because once this gets started, once runaway climate starts,
right,
there is no vaccine.
Right.
It's controversial. The vaccine is. There's nothing except, except being the fact that you won't have any factory farms. You're going to have a hard time getting something to eat. Which will be
right. This is the time to fix everything. This is the time that we have been given.
Exactly.
This time, this pause was Mother Nature, Mother Earth putting us in the chrysalis phase of humanity. Saying, you're done with your caterpillar phase. You're done with all that consumption that you did. Now you're in the chrysalis phase. Just think about what you have done and figure out how you're going to become butterflies.
Yes.
And that's our job, the next few years, to put down, how will the butterfly live? How will we live as butterflies? How will we live as a species that other species look up and say, they are our friends? Right now, they run away from us. Saying, don't come anywhere near me, right? Yeah. But I see that happening all around. I see it happening, and I see this tremendous upswelling of human beings coming together to do the right thing.
I agree, Sailesh. I think this is a terrific time for change. I've noticed, can I share a couple of stories over the last couple of years that I've noticed? I was at what we call the Grow Green conference a couple of years ago at the British Library, and I can remember seeing a lady on a Texas farm on a huge screen in front of everyone saying how happy she was because for years she was so upset at sending her animals for slaughter, but she didn't know any other way. So you can imagine in Texas to turn around to the community and say, we're not doing this anymore. It took some courage, but her and her husband did it. They went plant-based, and I thought, wow. And at that very conference, there were two farmers from Britain who had become a little bit famous over here, and they did exactly the same thing. They were very upset at sending their cows to slaughter. They got to know them so well and their individual personalities. And they too made a switch. They gave over 70 cows to a sanctuary. They didn't sell them, they just gave them away. And the vegan society over here helped them to transition to plant-based. And they're now producing oat milk for one of the oat milk distributors. So there's definitely hope for change. Farmers are thinking differently, I think. Not all of them, but I think some of them are thinking differently. And so that's really what we're trying to do with factory farming, is to get rid of the industrialization of animals. And then from that, we can pivot on to other things, maybe.
Right. In fact, those two, I think you were referring to Rowdy Girl story and 73 Cows. Wasn't there a
Well,
documentary
yes,
about
you've
that?
seen the movie, yeah.
Yes, I've seen. I know Alex Lockwood. He, the producer who won the
Oh, you
BAFTA
know,
award.
Alex.
for that,
Okay,
yes.
cool. Yeah, yeah. It's a very sweet story, beautifully filmed and told.
Yeah, it's a beautiful documentary. It won the BAFTA award for best documentary. And yeah, so thank you all very, very much. This has been such an inspiring conversation to start the year. The awesome podcast. So thank you for your contribution. I'm really, really looking forward to working with you all, because we are all in this together. This is just a journey that we help each other on this journey.
Walking each other home.
Thank you, brother, for your leadership and for loving your granddaughter as we love our grandchildren, loving your granddaughter. So this is what we need to be able to think about. Those future generations that are coming along, that we make sure their future is one that we can be thankful for, that they have a good future.
Right.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Thank you.